How did one man steal $24 million from the biggest fast food chain in the world and get away with it for 12 years? September 10th, 2001, Jacksonville, Florida. A 58-year-old former cop sits in the defendant's chair. His name is Jerome Jacobson, but everyone called him Uncle Jerry. The charge? Controlling every single million-dollar prize in the McDonald's Monopoly game. The cars, the vacations, the cash. For over a decade, almost no one won legitimately. Everything went through one man and a network with ties to the mob. The next day, the world watched the Twin Towers collapse, and this story vanished. Until now. To understand how a single man managed to rig America's most famous contest, we need to go back to 1987. McDonald's was facing a problem. Sales had stagnated. Competition was tightening. The chain needed something that would bring customers back and keep them coming back again and again. The solution came from a marketing company called Simon Marketing, based in California. The pitch was simple. Partner McDonald's with Monopoly, the best-selling board game in the world. Customers would receive game pieces stuck to fry cartons and drink cups. Collect the right properties and you could win prizes, from free burgers to $1 million in cash. The concept was brilliant, and it worked. Within the first few weeks, sales shot up 40%. Massive lines formed outside restaurants. Everyone wanted to peel off that sticker and find out if they'd won. McDonald's Monopoly became a cultural phenomenon. But there was one detail nobody questioned. Who controlled the winning pieces? By law, McDonald's couldn't run its own contest. The conflict of interest would be too obvious. So full responsibility was handed over to Simon Marketing. They printed the pieces. They decided where to place the big prizes. They guaranteed the security of the entire process. And within Simon Marketing, there was one man in charge of overseeing that security. His name was Jerome Jacobson. Jerome Jacobson was no ordinary criminal. Born in 1943 in Ohio, he grew up in a middle-class family and followed a respectable path. He joined the police force in Florida, where he worked for several years. He had a reputation as a methodical, disciplined man of few words, the kind of person you'd trust to keep secrets. When he left the police, Jacobson moved into private security, and that's how, in the 1980s, he ended up at Dittler Brothers, the printing company responsible for producing McDonald's Monopoly pieces. Later, he transitioned directly to Simon Marketing as their director of security. His job was simple: make sure nobody stole the winning pieces. Jacobson supervised the entire process. He oversaw the printing, he checked the tamper-proof seals, he personally transported high-value pieces to distribution centers. An external auditor followed him everywhere, except to one place, the bathroom. And that's where it all began. In 1989, a foreign supplier made a mistake. They sent a batch of security seals directly to Jacobson instead of delivering them to the company. Suddenly, Uncle Jerry had in his hands the tool that would allow him to open and reseal envelopes without leaving a trace. The security system of America's most closely watched contest had a flaw, and that flaw was the very man hired to protect it. Jacobson started slowly. First, he removed a winning piece and gave it to a family member. The prize was claimed without any issues. Nobody suspected. Nobody checked. So he did it again and again. Within a few months, Jerome Jacobson realized something. The system wasn't just vulnerable. The system was completely blind. In 1995, McDonald's raised the stakes. The top prize jumped from $100,000 to $1 million. Monopoly had become so popular that the chain wanted to push it even further. For Jerome Jacobson, this was an invitation. Until then, Uncle Jerry had operated within a tight circle, close relatives, trusted friends, people who didn't ask questions. But $1 million changes everything. The risk was higher, and so was the reward. Jacobson needed to expand the network, and he needed people who knew how to keep their mouths shut. That's when Gennaro Colombo entered the picture. Jerry Colombo, as he was known, was no ordinary citizen. He had ties to the Colombo family of New York, one of the 5 families of the American mafia. Jacobson met him through a contact in the classic car business, a passion they both shared. The deal was simple. Jacobson supplied the winning pieces. Colombo found people willing to claim them. In return, they split the profits. The scheme worked like this. Jacobson would meet Colombo or other middlemen in discreet locations, gas stations, parking lots, airports. He'd hand over the winning piece. The middleman would pass it to a hand-picked winner. That person would go to McDonald's, claim the prize, and weeks later hand over a percentage to whoever gave them the piece. There were strict rules. No winner could live near Jacobson. No one could have an obvious connection to Simon Marketing. Every prize had to appear random, and it did, for years. In 1995, Jerry Colombo appeared in a McDonald's television commercial. He was showing off the keys to a Dodge Viper he had supposedly won in the Monopoly game. A man with ties to the mafia, smiling at the camera, thanking McDonald's for his luck. Nobody at the company suspected a thing. The scheme grew. Jacobson recruited more middlemen, an ex-convict in Florida, a retired drug dealer, a group of Mormons in Utah who needed money. The network spread across several states with no apparent pattern. Between 1995 and 2000, virtually every high-value prize in McDonald's Monopoly went to people connected to Jerome Jacobson. Cars, vacations, $100,000, $1 million, all funneled through the same network. And McDonald's? They kept paying. They kept filming happy winners. They kept promoting the contest as the opportunity of a lifetime. Millions of Americans collected pieces, dreaming of the big prize. They didn't know that prize was never available to them. In 1998, Jerry Colombo died in a car accident. For Jacobson, this was a problem. Colombo was the main distributor of pieces on the East Coast. He had the contacts, knew the procedures, knew how to keep the operation invisible. Without him, the network was exposed. But Uncle Jerry didn't stop. He adapted. He recruited new middlemen, expanded the scheme to more states, and continued to extract winning pieces with the same precision as always. The mistake didn't come from inside, it came from outside. In March 2000, an anonymous informant contacted the FBI in Jacksonville, Florida. The tip was vague but unsettling. Someone called Uncle Jerry was rigging McDonald's Monopoly. Several winners knew each other. There were too many coincidences. Special Agent Doug Matthews caught the case. He was an eccentric man, known for wearing gold suits and for hating the monotony of traditional financial crimes. When he saw the memo about McDonald's, he was immediately intrigued. Matthews started investigating the winners, and he quickly found a pattern. Too many winners lived near Jacksonville. Others had fake addresses. They claimed to live in one state, but resided in another. Some had criminal records, and almost all of them, when pressed, told stories that didn't add up. The FBI needed concrete evidence, and to get it, they needed to catch someone in the act. They set up an operation. They created a fictitious company called Shamrock Productions, supposedly filming a promotional ad for Monopoly winners. They contacted several winners and invited them to participate. The camera was rolling, the microphones were on, and the agents, disguised as television producers, asked increasingly specific questions. How did you find out you won? Where did you find the piece? Do you know someone called Uncle Jerry? One by one, the winners contradicted themselves. Some panicked, others tried to run, and several, under pressure, started talking. The network collapsed within weeks. By August 2001, the FBI had identified more than 50 people involved in the scheme. Jerome Jacobson was arrested. Gennaro Colombo was dead, but his family members were charged. Middlemen, fake winners, accomplices from multiple states, all caught in the same web. The trial was scheduled for September. Jacobson sat in the defendant's chair on the 10th. On the 11th, 2 planes hit the World Trade Center. America went into shock. The news focused exclusively on terrorism. Uncle Jerry's trial continued, but nobody was paying attention. The biggest fraud in the history of American fast food was tried and convicted almost in silence. Jerome Jacobson pleaded guilty to 3 counts of mail fraud. The sentence, 37 months in federal prison and an obligation to pay $12.5 million in restitution. He was 58 years old when he went in. He came out at 61, in silence, without interviews, without public statements. But Jacobson wasn't the only one. In total, 51 people were convicted in the McMillions case. 47 pleaded guilty. 4 went to trial and lost. Sentences ranged from probation to 5 years in prison, depending on the level of involvement. Among those convicted were members of Jerry Colombo's family, middlemen from various states, and dozens of fake winners who had agreed to participate in the scheme in exchange for a cut. Some were career criminals. Others were ordinary people, nurses, shopkeepers, retirees, who saw an easy opportunity and didn't ask questions. 4 convictions were later overturned on appeal. The courts determined that those individuals didn't know the pieces were stolen. They had been used as fronts without knowledge of the larger scheme. Simon Marketing didn't survive. McDonald's immediately terminated the contract after the arrests. The company tried to sue the fast food chain for breach of agreement, but lost. In 2002, Simon Marketing declared bankruptcy and shut down operations. Hundreds of employees who had nothing to do with the fraud lost their jobs. McDonald's, for its part, moved quickly to control the damage. The company announced a special promotion, $10 million in instant prizes, distributed randomly to compensate customers who had played for years without any real chance of winning. It was an implicit admission that the system had failed. But there was no formal apology. There was no public investigation into how the fraud went undetected for 12 years. McDonald's positioned itself as the victim, and technically it was. The chain had paid $24 million in fraudulent prizes. It had trusted an external company to manage security. It had been deceived by the very man hired to prevent exactly this kind of crime. But there was one question that remained unanswered. How did nobody, for more than a decade, notice that the winners were all connected to each other? The answer is uncomfortable. Nobody looked. McDonald's received winner reports, verified the legitimacy of the pieces, and paid out. The process was automatic. There was no audit system that cross-referenced identities, checked family relationships, or analyzed geographic patterns. The contest was designed to look secure, not to be secure. Curiously, in the middle of the whole scheme, Jacobson did something unexpected. In 1995, he anonymously sent a $1 million winning piece to St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. The hospital received the prize and, over the following years, collected the annual payments. Only much later, during the investigation, did the FBI discover that this donation also came from Uncle Jerry. McDonald's decided not to reclaim that money. The hospital kept the $1 million.
For nearly 20 years, this story remained forgotten. The trial records stayed sealed. Those involved refused interviews. McDonald's never spoke publicly about the matter again, and the American public, traumatized by September 11th, had other concerns. Until 2018. That year, journalist Jeff Maish published an extensive article in the Daily Beast, revealing for the first time the full details of the scheme. The piece went viral. Hollywood reacted within days. Fox, Universal, Netflix, and Warner Bros. Entered a bidding war for the rights to the story. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon became attached to a film project that remains in development. In 2020, HBO released McMillions, a 6-episode documentary series that interviewed FBI agents, fake winners, relatives of those convicted, and Simon Marketing employees. The documentary revealed details that had never been made public: the wiretaps, the Shamrock Productions operation, the tense moments during the arrests. Doug Matthews, the FBI agent who led the investigation, became something of a celebrity. His eccentric style and enthusiasm for the case contrasted with the gravity of the fraud. But the story didn't stay in the past. In September 2025, McDonald's announced the return of monopoly to the United States for the first time in nearly 10 years. The promotion came back with new rules: digital pieces, verification through a mobile app, independent audits, and reinforced security protocols. The company didn't directly mention the scandal, but the message was implicit. This time, they promised, the system would be fraud-proof. The question is whether consumers believe it. The McMillions case exposed an uncomfortable truth about corporate contests and promotions. For 12 years, millions of people played a game that was rigged. They bought more fries, more drinks, more combo meals, all hoping to win a prize that was never available to them. And nobody checked, nobody questioned, nobody paid attention. Jerome Jacobson died in 2023 at the age of 80 without ever giving an interview. He took with him the missing details: how he chose his middlemen, how he avoided getting caught for so long, and why, in the middle of it all, he decided to send $1 million to a children's hospital. The McDonald's monopoly fraud remains the largest prize scam in American history, and it remains for most people a story they've never heard. For 12 years, millions of people played without knowing the game was rigged, and for more than 20 years, almost nobody knew this ever happened. The question remains: how many other frauds of this magnitude are hidden out there, just waiting for someone to pay attention?